I don't want to cut into your work time, so let's get this next piece figured out. We have a nice short lesson today. Are you ready? Avery says yes. Avery says I want a nice long lesson today. All right. So today, we're kind of getting closer to wrapping up our formulas. We've got a few more yet to go. Today we're going to look at double angle formulas, and I'll show you where we get the formula from. I think that you guys could probably do this, just show how much you've learned in one day. Could you expand sine of a plus b for me? Anybody? Without looking at your notes? Sine of a times cosine of b. So the question comes up, suppose that a and b are the same values. Then our sine of what's a plus a? 2a. And then you would have sine of a times the cosine of a, wouldn't you? Plus cosine of a times the sine of a. Aren't those the same expressions? They are. And so it turns out that the sine of a double angle is simply 2 times the sine of an angle times cosine of an angle. Nope. So I just did a very short proof for you so you can see where it comes from. I won't show you all of them, but I will show you that one. So this is the formula we want to write down today. Sine of 2a is 2 sine of a cosine of a. Turns out that there's double angle formulas as well for cosine and for tangent. The cosine double angle formula, we could derive just like I did the previous one. For sake of time, we won't. But you get cosine squared of a minus sine squared of a. You can. Kind of like sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. It turns out that there's actually 3 formulas to choose from, and I'll show you the best one to use eventually. You could also have 2 cosine squared of a minus 1, and you could also have 1 minus 2 sine squared of a. So you have 3 options for formulas. Sure. Cosine of a plus b is equal to cosine of a times the cosine of b, right? And then we do minus, and you have sine of a times sine of b. So if you had the angles being the same, suppose they were both a, it would be 2a, correct? And then if you plugged in an a there, we have cosine of a times cosine of a minus sine of a times the sine of a. Well, what's cosine of a times cosine of a? Cosine squared of a minus sine squared of a. So that's how I came up with that. I could show you all of them. But for the sake of time, let's just kind of write these ones down. The next one would be tangent. Tangent of 2a ends up being 2 tangent of a over 1 minus tangent squared of a. I never use that one because there's a different formula I like better. I like to use just sine of 2a divided by cosine of 2a. They are the same. We could prove it for you. Nope. Yep. Okay, so we do one example today. We're just going to do the one example, and then we would like you to get working on that homework so you can answer any questions that you have. It says cosecant is equal to 2 and x is in the second quadrant. Find sine of 2x, cosine of 2x, tangent of 2x. And this becomes kind of this is one of these. It's an IDK problem, meaning that students get to the test, they just write IDK. I have no idea how to do that. And we've talked about those, right? About how we want to try to avoid that moment. So can I help you avoid the IDK moment? Okay, because actually most of this problem you already know how to do, you've already done before. Let me just show you how to do it. IDK is a tough one. You're going to take a 0 out of 4 on that. It's going to reduce your test grade by about 10% right away. So let's not take the loss there, okay? So it says you want to find sine of 2x, cosine of 2x, and tangent of 2x. So I'm going to write down sine of 2x, cosine of 2x, and tangent of 2x. Have I lost anybody yet? So can we all agree that that's a kind of a bare minimum right there, that we got to do that? I'm just saying that, like, people won't even write that down sometimes. You want a half a point, you got to write this one, okay? I'm going to start with sine of 2x. What's our formula for sine of a double angle? What should I write down here? 2 sine of x, cosine of x, right? So at this point, I could give you a half point out of 4. Really, to not call the parents, I want one more thing, okay? Notice what they tell us, and this is what's very important. This is a double angle. And in calculus 2, we have all these problems with double angles and single angles. The truth is, we sometimes need to work back and forth. This is a double angle. This is not a double angle. This is a single angle, okay? So if cosecant is 2, then what else do I know? Sine is 1/2. Everybody remember that? So therefore, I have 2 times sine of x. X isn't 1/2. Sine of x. The whole thing is 1/2. So at this point, I'm like, good. I don't have to call home. They actually put 1/2 in for sine. What's cosine? Folks, if we are given sine, do we have the capabilities of finding cosine? Yeah. How? Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. What is sine squared? 1/4. Is equal to 1 or 4/4. Does this look familiar? This was on your first test of the semester. We did this. We subtract a 4th, we get cosine squared of x is equal to 3/4. And then, we square root both sides. We get cosine of x is equal to plus or minus the root of 3 over 2.
Which is 30 degrees.
Excellent. It is 30 degrees, but this is not a 30-degree angle. But what we do want to know is it going to be positive or negative? Is it going to be positive or negative? Cosine is negative in the second quadrant. So therefore, we choose a negative root of 3 over 2. Yes, good. So, any questions where we've come so far? Because the rest is easy. And what we've done, we've already done this before, haven't we? Like there's really nothing new here, is there? Seen it all before. So now, actually, the mistakes that people are making on their assignment is they're not multiplying correctly. Okay? So this is a 2 over 1. So sometimes people multiply the top and the bottom by 2. We don't do that. Okay? So let's multiply the top. 2 times 1 times the negative root of 3 is negative 2 roots of 3. And on the bottom, 1 times 2 is 4. So how does negative 2 roots of 3 over 4 simplify? Negative root of 3 over 2. Yep. And that's that. Yeah, I did that, but it's not always canceling. It seems like people are, you're absolutely right. Like, so when I first taught, I said 2 times 1/2, those just go away. Yep. But like, I'm trying to prevent people from making mistakes with their other stuff. So if this was, if this was like, 3/9 over here, 3/10, like, what would you do then? Okay, so good. You got negative root of 3 over 2. Nice job. The rest is easy. For cosine of 2x, I like to choose this formula right here. And the reason why I like to choose that formula is I have to come up with sine in order to use the first formula, right? And this one just involves using sine again. So I just always default to using this one. So I have 1 minus 2 times sine squared. What again is sine of x? 1/2. So 2 times 1/2 squared. 1 minus 2 times, what's 1/2 squared? 1/4. 2 times 1/4. 1/2. So 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. And then when you look at tangent of 2x, this is really important, everybody sees this. When I look at tangent of 2x, I could use this formula, but I don't know what tangent is yet, do I?
No.
Or I could just use this formula here.
Yeah.
Because do I know sine of 2x? What is sine of 2x? It's negative root of 3 over 2. Does everybody understand the difference? Sine of x is 1/2. But sine of 2x is negative root of 3 over 2. So use negative root of 3 over 2 divided by what? Yeah, 1/2. And when we multiply by the reciprocal, we get negative root of 3. No. Nope. That's it. The formula is sine of the double angle divided by cosine of the double angle. Sine of the double angle is negative root of 3 over 2. Cosine of the double angle is 1/2. Okay? Now, there's different, people make great connections throughout trigonometry. That's the great part. So the last piece I just want you guys to try to think through that people generally raise questions about, I like to get it out of the way here, is this. Which quadrant are we in? Second quadrant. Is cosine positive or negative second quadrant? Negative. Then why is cosine positive? Talk amongst yourselves, try to figure it out. Go. Okay, anybody have a really good answer for me? That's what everybody goes to. Multiply 2 negatives and it's positive. But notice this one ends up being negative. And here's the answer. I'll show you. You don't know this. I happen to know this, but the angle x happens to be 150 degrees. And you don't have to know that to do the problem at all. But so x is 150. Is that in the first quadrant or second quadrant? It's in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, notice we had the sine value was positive, and you had the cosine value is negative. But when you find the double angle, what's 2 times 150? 300. That's the double angle. So is 300, which quadrant is that in? Fourth quadrant. Is sine positive or negative in the fourth quadrant? Negative. Is cosine positive or negative in the fourth quadrant? Positive. Is tangent positive or negative? Negative. So that's why, so it's very common that people will say, go through the test, and they'll get a point off, and I'll say, your positive and negatives are incorrect. And they'll be like, Mr. Gentz, you said second quadrant, so I changed my cosine to be negative. It's like, well, you guys, that's cosine of the single angle would be in the second quadrant, but the double angle ends up being in the fourth. So And it's not always, you can't always predict whether it's second or fourth or whatnot. Just trust your results. So that's part of the deal. So take out your assignment. Take out your assignment. Okay, so between now and Monday, you're able to do 1 through 3 on the front, and you're able to just do 4, 5, 6, and 7. Please do not go beyond that. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are supposed to be really simple. If they're not seeming simple to you, then ask about them when you come back. Yes, do not move on. That's another day. I'd like to look at problems 1, 2, and 3 with you just to help you set up. Okay, notice it sets up exactly like the one we did in class. It says find sine of 2x, cosine of 2x, and tangent of 2x, which that's what we were doing, right? And in order to do that, true or false, you're going to have to figure out cosine. You're going to have to figure out cosine eventually, right? So if you're given sine, what can you use to figure out cosine? The most important formula in all of trigonometry. Okay. For number 3, you're given cosine. True or false? You're going to have to come up with sine. So what formula could you use? Look at number 2. Are you given sine or cosine? No. What formula do you use if you're given tangent? 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. Once you find secant, you then know cosine, right? And once you know cosine, you can then use 1 plus sine squared, or sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. So just keep that in mind. I would encourage you to set aside whatever other stuff you're working on and focus on trying to get one of these problems done to get through the questions that you have. Now that said, if you have a pressing current events test you have to get ready for, then so be it. Or if you really want to check those answers from the other day, then go ahead. My advice to you, set everything else aside and do this now. That's my advice. And I will come around and help. Good job. Should we try again?